Hello and welcome to the latest installment of Helix Education's webinar series, COVID-19, the Roadmap to Fall 2020. Today we're talking about student and parent expectation management, and specifically we've titled today's webinar, Students Tell All. Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Sparky Mortimer. I'm the Associate Director of Creative Strategy at Helix Education, and I'm your host for the day. This is our 16th webinar that we've had in this summer series. It's incredible how much content we've gone through this summer, and today's a really unique experience as we hear from students across the country. I'll introduce them in a second. If you've been with us before, welcome back. If you haven't, we're so glad that you joined us. Just a few housekeeping items to make you aware of. We are recording today's presentation. We're going to post it later on our Helix Education YouTube channel. We've also have a live transcript service called Otter AI that's providing a live transcript of today's proceedings. And so we've put the link to that in the chat if that's something that you would like to take advantage of. We will also welcome your questions as we get into the topics today. And so use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen to ask a question. At any time you hear or see something that you want to know more about, use that Q&A icon there at the bottom and submit your question. And again, we've been on this journey for 16 weeks now. We'll dive in a little bit more about these different pillars of a quality online education as we get toward the end of our presentation today. But again, the area of focus this week is student and parent expectation management, and who better to discuss student expectations heading into fall 2020 than the students themselves. And we're so glad to have 4 students with us today from institutions across the country. First, we have Cameron, or Cami, Burke. She's an incoming freshman at Boston College. She's working toward a degree in environmental science and biology. Very active throughout her high school career. She was on the lacrosse team. She rode equestrian, involved in many clubs on campus. FBLA, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which I understand raised more money than any other high school club the year that she was there. So good on you, Cami. Also completed an internship with her local county health department in the environmental health branch. Very interested in public health, environmental health, medicine, scientific research, lots of different interests that Cami has. And so we're excited to get her take as an incoming freshman starting this whole college experience right off the bat in the middle of a pandemic. So Cami, welcome. We're certainly glad to have you. Also joining us today is Joey Lukrich. He is a sophomore at Drake University. You can see there he's on the football team. He's a defensive back for the Bulldogs. He's pursuing a finance and economics degree. As part of being on the football team, he participates in monthly service projects with his teammates. He loves connecting with new people, going out of his comfort zone, new experiences. Joey is all about the new, and obviously there's a lot of newness going around in terms of how we all respond to a pandemic, a situation that none of us could have anticipated or predicted. And so, Joey, we're interested to hear what you have to say, particularly as a student athlete. Student athletes, depending on where you are in the country, are going through lots of different experiences right now. And so, Joey, we're interested to hear how this has affected you both academically and athletically. So Joey, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Third among our student guests is Payton Camilli. She is at the University of Wisconsin-Madison pursuing a Bachelor of Business Administration with a concentration in Marketing and Operations Management. Payton is an incredibly busy student, so involved in her community and with the university itself. She is the president of the Alpha Mu chapter of Alpha Kappa Psi, that is Wisconsin's most prestigious business fraternity. She's also a BBA ambassador, and so she connects with high school and transfer students who are interested in entering the BBA program at UW and makes connections with them, helps them to confirm their interest in the program, essentially. She's a business owner, Cupcakes by Payton, which helps fund her love of travel as well as helping with those tuition payments as well. Varied internship experience. She's done internships at Intuit, WPS Health Solutions, as well as University of Wisconsin Athletics. And so very involved, very active. Payton, we're super excited to have you with us. Thank you for your time. And last but not least, we have Greg Shagen, is a senior at the University of Utah. He's pursuing an economics major and an entrepreneurship minor. He's had internships each of the last 2 years, one with Whitewaters Group. They're a retail, hospitality, and office projects real estate firm. And then he's also gotten a taste of international commerce as he interned at Provence Promotion in the summer of 2020, which is an economic development agency that supports investment in the Provence region of France. And I'll work on my French pronunciation as we go. Greg wants to be an investment analyst long-term. Outside of school and work, he enjoys skiing, sailing, and exploring around his home state of Utah. Greg, so happy to have you. And I would be remiss if I did not introduce the person who brought all of the students together, and that's KARI KOVAR. She's going to moderate our discussion today. She is our Chief Operating Officer at Helix Education. She's a higher ed lifer. She's a parent of college students herself. Brings professional and personal perspectives to what is going on in the higher ed space in the midst of COVID-19. As you can see there, she has family members that are both furry and for less in Park City, loves the outdoors, always seeks adventure, and obviously you could say that what we're going through right now is a bit of an adventure. And so I very much appreciate KARI's approach to problem solving and finding new ways to tackle both new and old challenges. And that's a great segue into what we are about to talk about today. So KARI, I will turn the time over to you to get us started on our discussion today with our student panelists. KARI, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Sparky. And more importantly, welcome, friends. I am thrilled to have the opportunity to sit down with the Fab Four, as I like to call them, to talk about kind of their experience. So part of what we're going to do today is just have a conversation. We're gonna ask Payton and Cami and Greg and Joey to just share their experience and their perspective. We'll dig into a couple of topics, certainly study abroad, athletics, and kind of student organizations, life around the classroom, if you will. We'll talk about kind of the impacts around the internships and or career potential for these students. We're going to talk about mental health, right? There's been a lot of discussion and a lot of kind of research and consideration around students' mental health. And so we'll talk about that, and then certainly talk about the academic experience and the modalities and what does that mean and how does that play out. And certainly, as Sparky indicated early on, this pillar is about student and parent expectation management. And so we're going to talk about communication and how has that kind of gone for each of these folks. And generally, just again, try and get some perspective. We're going to keep this really casual. We're going to, like I said, it will be very much a conversation amongst us all. Certainly, as we've indicated, we are dealing with unprecedented times and circumstances, and so it's a challenge and hopefully an opportunity for all of us in some form and function. I thought I would share this. This is a source that we've been looking at throughout the last 16 weeks. And one of the things to note is that you will see the colleges and universities across the country and their intention around how they're going to deliver their educational experience is changing and shifting. So much so that we've got some new categories. Previously, it was 100% online, or it was hybrid, or it was face-to-face. Now you'll see we have a category called fully in-person, primarily in-person. We still have hybrid, and then we've got primarily online, fully online. And so just 5 weeks ago, 59% of colleges and universities were planning to deliver the educational experience in person. And if you look at that, we've seen some pretty significant shift. And so even yesterday, right, UNC Chapel Hill announced that they, although started face-to-face, now everybody effective immediately is 100% online. So I expect that we will continue to see some of those shifts and evolutions as we go in the next several weeks, certainly. To make sure that we've got kind of shared reference and perspective, I shared with these Fab Four different articles. So one around mental health, higher education, and COVID-1 strategies for leaders to support campus well-being. That was actually a partnership with ACE and others kind of coming together, and a great report there. We also read an article called Personal Stories from the Pandemic, How the Crisis is Affecting 8 Learners in Their Educational and Work Plans, which we'll talk more about and reference as we go. We had an article about study abroad programs and COVID and kind of what to know. And then the last article that we read was athletes call on leaders to make decisions about the fall season. So again, these are kind of the 4 articles that we all shared together and that we'll be referencing as we go in this conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to let you just look at our faces. You can see all of us are in different kind of places and spaces. God bless COVID. Listen, I'm working from my bedroom. Probably not ideal, but it works and it's quiet. And we've got Joey in the backyard. Greg, I think, is hanging at his parents' house. We've got Payton in her mom's office and Cami is at her home. So welcome all of you. We're thrilled to have you. And let's get ready to have some fun and have some conversation, shall we? All right. So let me do a quick level set. Between last week when we chatted and this week, let's do kind of a quick roll call on how you are planning to take courses this fall. So Greg, let's start with you as the senior at the University of Utah. How are you? Are you face-to-face? Are you online? What does it look like?
So for me, I only have 5 more credits left to take. It's super funny. I'm taking a mountain biking class, a cooking and camping class, and a snowshoeing class. So they are all in person. So no online. They're all in person.
Listen, Greg, I hope that you're able to get through these courses because they sound exceptionally strenuous.
Super, super hard. Yeah.
Yep, those work hard, buddy, work hard. Okay, Payton, how about for you? How are you planning to take, or what's on the docket at the University of Wisconsin?
Yeah, so I think they're advertising as online when possible. I'm only taking 3 courses, all are marketing and operations capstone courses. Only 3 courses, and 2 were going to be online, 1 was in person. However, it just switched last night for the 3rd time, and so now I have 2 in person, except 1 is in person on a Saturday. So that's interesting, but it could switch again.
All right. Okay, so you've got kind of a hybrid. Joey, how about for you as a sophomore at Drake? What's happening?
So Drake is a university. They're trying to do as many courses in person as possible, but the business school, I want to say a month ago, decided to go fully online. So all of I'm taking, as of now, I'm taking 6 classes, and they're all online. So unfortunate, but it is what it is. I think they're going to be, they're trying to make it so a lot of the labs for, some of the science majors are going to be able to be in person. But other than that, they're kind of leaving it up to the professors to choose if they want to be in person. And a lot of them are opting to go fully online, which, makes sense. So that's what we're dealing with.
Okay. All right. Cami, how about you as a freshman going to Boston College? What's happening? What's the plan?
Yeah, so I'm in your little hybrid section of the pie chart. I have 3 in-person classes, 1 hybrid, so it meets like once a week and it switches off with what students are in it, and then 2 online courses.
Perfect. Okay, so let's dive in. So one of the articles that we read, right, was, well, actually 2 of the articles we read around the personal stories from the pandemic, right, of the 8 learners there. And then we also read the story on kind of work plans and study abroad and kind of the implications of that. Let's take a trip, if you will, down kind of memory lane, and let's go back to this spring of 2020 when all of this excitement and the new world kind of happened for us. Payton, let's start with you. So as a sophomore at the time, University of Wisconsin, what happened? Where were you when COVID-19 kind of, reared its ugly head? And what implications did it have on your kind of spring semester?
Yeah, so I was studying abroad in Dublin, Ireland for the semester. I was supposed to be there for 16-ish weeks, ended up being there for 6. I was there for the full semester. I had 5 classes, which is 15 credits at UW. They were all transferring back towards my degree. So I was a full-time student. However, I didn't have the typical on-campus jobs and didn't have my extracurriculars like I usually do. So I still had a lot of time to have fun while abroad. So yeah, we were having a great time. Weren't paying too close of attention to the news, you know, kind of, but not really. We were in our own little bubble. We knew that things were bad in Italy and Spain. So when the Italy program got canceled, we weren't really surprised. And then we thought Spain was soon to follow. But what happened was we called it the email herd around the world. It was a Wednesday night. We were ready to go have fun. And we get this email from UW saying all programs are canceled and you have 10 days to get back in the country. Naturally, we were sad, but we were like, oh, 10 days, plenty of time to go to Galway and pack up our stuff and get home. And that weekend, we had friends coming in for St. Patrick's Day. So we were like, oh, maybe that'll still happen. But that Wednesday night was when Trump went on and made the announcement. And that is when the panic set in. And it was like every man for themselves. We had always known we were in charge of our own flights. The university didn't organize that for us. So we were on our own in terms of getting flights. I was lucky and my roommates were lucky where we had connections and family at home to help us. And all 5 of us were on flights within the next 12 hours back home. But I have friends who were in Australia, Singapore, who were paying upwards of $5,000 for a flight home. And then that flight would get canceled and they'd have to reschedule. And it was like panic and chaos getting home. And it was also really scary because it was like this invisible enemy here in airports.
Right.
Yeah, UW was one of the first large public schools to cancel, which I was pissed at the time to be the first one. I was like, really? But hindsight, it was good because I had some friends who were in the same program who just went to Illinois, ended up getting COVID in the airport because all international flights were getting routed through certain airports. And so they had to deal with that. So it was good. But once I was back, classes transitioned nicely. The school I was at, University of College Dublin, every semester around 40% of their students are international. So they were ready and they were very flexible in terms of mandatory like meeting times. And the classes in and of themselves were pretty easily transitioned online because it was, here's all the curriculum and then you have one paper, one final at the end.
Yeah.
So classes ended up being okay. I got all the credits that I needed. They all transferred back. They gave us the pass-fail option if we needed it, but I ended up not needing it. But the only sad thing was I ended up paying a little bit more in tuition just for the insurance of being abroad and some other fees, which I didn't get back, which was frustrating. And people keep telling me like, oh, you'll have a great story one day to like tell your grandkids. And I'm like, yeah, well, that was a really expensive story. That's funny. It was pretty crazy.
That is. Joey, how about for you? So it would have been your second semester of your freshman year, right? And you were kind of new to higher education and to college. I know one of the things we had talked about last week was, part of why you chose Drake, not only for the academics and athletics as a Division I football player, but also because of some of the traditions and things that happen at Drake. So tell us a little bit about that and what impact COVID had on your kind of second semester freshman year.
Yeah, so football being a fall sport, going into spring, it's much more relaxed and, it's more focused on, just like lifting in terms of the athletics. So you have more time to, socially go around, have fun, and then also to get your schoolwork done. So that was really refreshing after the first fall semester, which was kind of crazy busy. But yeah, we got there 2 weeks before the rest of the students came so we could start training. Everything, was going well. It was just fun because we had really all we had was lifting and running, and then we could just get our homework done and then be able to go out. But so yeah, the first COVID announcement came to us, when we all started hearing about it, it was probably the second week of March. Mm-hmm. And that was right when our spring ball was starting. And our coach, we had a meeting before our first spring ball practice. He's like, I know you guys are seeing this, this whole new virus news, and he's like, don't worry about it. It's not going to affect us. And we're like, oh, okay. And then Tuesday practice came. Next day, my position coach was like, yeah, they're thinking about shutting the school down. And we were all like, what are you talking about? Like, this is crazy.
Right.
And, further ahead, a month ahead, going back to the traditions of Drake relays are held the third week of April. And it's the second biggest track meet in the country for collegiate, professional, and high school athletes. So that's, when I was getting recruited to come to Drake, one of their biggest pulls was like, spring semester, you're out of football.
Yep.
A lot of kids, they're just messing around, going to parties or whatever. You guys have, one of like really the biggest parties that goes on for a week. And we're all just like, okay, that sounds awesome. All the seniors who you talk to, they're like, it is like probably the best time you're going to have. That week every year is the best time you're going to have of the year. So it was kind of hard being sent home, the second week of March. Initially they said we're going to come back after 3 weeks. And one of the Drake's biggest announcement and biggest news that everyone was waiting to hear was if they were going to either cancel the Drake relays or, keep it going. So we were all at home waiting to hear about that. Finally got canceled probably 3 weeks before it was supposed to happen. And it was pretty tough because, all in our freshman group chat, we're all like, it sucks. We're just going to be like the freshmen next year going into school. Like, we haven't experienced it just like they haven't. So we kind of just felt, it sucked, but I don't know. We had to deal with it. It was, everyone's dealing with it. So we got over it, but it definitely was hard. Just thinking like we really did miss like one of the best times of the year. We were sent home, we were worrying about staying safe, and also we had all these online classes to worry about. So it was difficult, but it is what it is. We had to deal with it. Yeah.
Cami, for you would have been in your senior year of high school, right? And you're now, you'd already made a decision. You did early admit, right, at BC.
Yeah.
And so you'd already made your decision. You knew that where you were going, what you were doing. When you kind of think about, your college career, as you were thinking about your college career this spring, what scenarios did you consider for fall because of COVID? Did you consider maybe not going? Walk us through some of that.
Yeah, so when everything started getting canceled and I realized that my fall semester was going to be really different than I thought it would be, I considered taking a gap year, but there's already no jobs for normal people, let alone, who wants to give a college student a job. And then there's no internships. I couldn't get an unpaid internship in the town. So I just kind of let that idea slide. I also technically couldn't take a gap year because I applied early decision. I was legally required to enroll in the fall and to attend. So that wasn't an option. But if it would have been, I probably would have taken it if there had been jobs and there's no travel. I would have loved to go travel and do some volunteer work, but that's obviously not an option. So I kind of was stuck with I could either stay at home and not really do anything or at least go to school and get an education. It might be online, but it's fine. It's just a little bit of a bummer that it's still $70,000 to sit in my dorm room.
Right. And and we'll talk more about that, right? We'll talk about kind of that value and how that plays into the conversation too, certainly. So again, we shared earlier, right? The American Council on Education, ACE, did, put together with some other groups. They had that article that they published around mental health, right? And higher education and kind of COVID. And they talked about strategies for leaders to support campus well-being, right? In that report. One of the topic areas that they kind of highlighted or looked at was ensuring that communication to students is consistent, that it is clear, and that it's caring, right? That there's a level of care there. Question for you, Greg. as someone, you're kind of the old dog in the herd here, right? So as someone that is a senior, you know, you are certainly familiar with the University of Utah. You're familiar with college, right? And what it means to be a college student. How would you describe the communication from the university as it relates to all things, you know, COVID? And how would you rate it? So 1 is not awesome, 10 is exceptional. 1, first, how would you rate it? And then let's talk about what that communication looked like.
So for me, when the classes ended or we stopped classes in the spring, the communication was lacking. Like, we ended classes and my teachers didn't know what to do. Like, they were like, I had no lectures after that. I had no Zoom lectures. They just gave us a bunch of articles to read. And we just took quizzes online and wrote some papers, but there was no learning really.
Mm-hmm.
No communication from the teachers to me. Like, I didn't know what was going on. So I'd give it like a 3
Mm-hmm.
out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
But this summer I took a condensed minor.
Mm-hmm.
I just took 18 credits to get my entrepreneurship minor. And they seemed like they figured it out. Like, we started off with the online classes. They had a set syllabus. Like, listen, like, all these classes are going to be on Zoom. And I learned fine. Like, the teachers communicated well. I had no problems. Yeah, I thought it was great. So for the summer, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Like, there was no problems for me.
Awesome. What about this fall? So as you go into your exceptionally challenging fall semester, what's the communication like, Ben?
I haven't heard anything. I just know that I just have to go to class. There's going to be 1 class for each class, and then there's a 3-day trip. So all the communication is going to be in that class.
Okay.
So I have not heard anything. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Interesting. So Cami, let's talk about your experience, because my guess is, as an incoming student, it's probably a little different than what our current students are experiencing, right? So as you look, you know, as a new student at Boston College, and as you think about communication, 1, first, let's rate the level of communication. Again, 1, not awesome, 10 is exceptional. How would you rate it first?
Yeah, I would give it an 8. I feel like coming from high school, when everything happened, everything was so up in the air. Teachers had no idea what was happening for high school, and every class had a different requirement. It was like, you have to attend at this time, and you have to be here this day, and then other teachers were just, do it by the end of the semester, and I don't care. So everyone was on a different page, and there was no communication from the school, so I'd give that a 1. And then coming into college, I was getting weekly emails with updates. They were super open. All channels of communication were open. They were answering the phone. They were answering emails really promptly. Everything was really good there. I feel like the emails were super detailed. I know my mom was super concerned about me going back in the fall, and she actually talked to, I think, the assistant dean or the dean or the provost for like an hour and a half on the phone about me going back. She's a little bit of a helicopter parent, but they were super available for everything, even that. And they answered all of her questions. And I think she feels a lot more secure with me going after talking to her.
And so Cami, question for you. So they're sending you communication. Were they also sending your mom and or dad communication as well, parents?
Yeah, so I got a lot more emails, but we both got the weekly emails that are sent on Mondays, and I think they got some more parent emails.
Okay, awesome. What about Joey for you? So again, end of your freshman year, going into your sophomore year, you know, a big thing for colleges and universities is making sure that they've got really strong retention, and there tends to be some fallout, right, between fall and spring, and then again between your first year and second year. So what's the communication been like for you as a current student, and have your parents received communication?
Yeah, so I'd say it's pretty similar to what Cami was talking about, how we've gotten bi-weekly emails on Monday and Thursday for probably since late March, since like everything started happening, just to let us, know all the updates. Parents, I think they're getting the same exact ones. I don't know if they're getting much more. I haven't really talked to them about that. because they've honestly done a really good job in those emails of just like giving me all the information I need. And so
Yep.
I haven't been asking my parents about any of that, but
Yep.
they've also been really good at like giving any sort of resource, like in terms of like counseling resources and all of that. And like if you're struggling, if you don't know what you want to do for the fall, like if you're struggling between picking to opt to online or stay, go back to campus,
Right.
they have a bunch of people who are willing to like get on the phone and they'll explain it to you and they'll talk to you and just give you like, their thought on it. So they've been really good, I think.
Awesome. I think it was Inside Higher Ed's article where they spotlighted, right, the 8 different learners, right? I think that all of their stories were really kind of enlightening, and there were several things that kind of came to light there. But one of the things that I think we all, certainly talked about and discussed, right, was that many of the students were talking about kind of that intersection of online learning and their mental health. Right? And what that means and what that looks like and how that's kind of showing up for them. So Payton, let's talk about that, right? I know when we were talking, right, and kind of preparing for today, you talked and mentioned that like you had increased anxiety and kind of you felt stress and uncertainty, right? So unpack that a little bit for me and for us and help us understand that.
Yeah, so there was definitely a lot of emotion that was included with having to leave a country very hurriedly and not knowing if you were going to be like locked out or if you were going to get COVID in the airport. It was like that in and of itself was scary.
Right.
And transitioning to online classes, wasn't great, but I did it and it was manageable. But then as it kind of turned from a short-term inconvenience to a longer, you might be virtual in the fall. This could potentially harm your ability to get a full-time offer after college. That was scary. And so, in college, there's definitely those emotional days where like, oh, you don't know what class to take. Shoot, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. There's that stress, but typically you can root yourself in the resources that the resources that your university offers. You can root yourself in the fact that your friends haven't figured out, you're talking to your professors, you're talking to people in between classes, you have all of this support. But now it's like no one really knows what's going on. And when you use those university resources to try and replan your 4 years, the information could be outdated in 2 weeks. It's that whole no one knows. So how do you address that, which is scary. And our university offers, I think you get 20 counseling and therapy sessions for free during your time at the university, but that's for the whole 4 years. And so I haven't used any of those, and I potentially could, but now I'm like, well, what if someone's already used those up, or is that enough to get you through your senior year? There's just so many uncertainties, and it's not the same as like, oh, I don't know what class I'm going to take this semester. It's like no one knows what classes are even going to be offered necessarily this semester.
Yeah. But and again, I think that is, to your point, everything is changing so quickly, and it is, and our ability to kind of adapt and the kind of stress with that obviously is unsettling. Joey, one of the things we talked about for you, right? So you're not, the season has been postponed or rescheduled, right? Perhaps.
Yeah, as of now it's canceled, but they're trying.
As of now it's canceled. Okay. So officially canceled. Division I, Drake, not happening this year, or not happening this fall anyway, right? On the flip side, one of the things that you and I had talked about, because I asked about kind of what does that mean and the stress, and you talked about kind of a totally different level of stress and quite honestly a reduced level. So talk to us about that and why.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just talk about freshman year fall football semester was like the biggest grind I've ever had in my life. So, I mean, my schedule, like every day was wake up at 6 for lifting, have a full day of classes, have practice, eat dinner, have another night class, and then do homework. So I literally had no time, outside of classes and football. And, you know, going into spring, I knew that alone was just going to be really nice because it was the off season.
Right.
And when all of the COVID came up, and, you know, we were scheduled to go back home for spring break anyways. So I was going to go home regardless. I didn't know how long I was going to be there in March, but I don't know. The stress for me, I was like, I'm kind of just going to roll with whatever happens. Like I really wasn't really stressed out at all because I just like, being like my first semester of just like being like a student athlete in college for the first time was kind of like, I think prepared me for really like any sort of schedule I'm ever going to have. So I knew like myself, I was going to be able to just kind of roll with it and deal with whatever happened. I was okay being at home initially, and online classes weren't really a problem. They, you know, for everyone, it was kind of, you know, teachers didn't know what to do. They were trying to figure out how to format everything. So they weren't making it extremely difficult, obviously, for the first time they'd gone online. But yeah, really, it was kind of like took a weight off my shoulders when we went home and then everything went online. I had more time to, you know, figure out what I had to do to adjust my schedule to, like, if I wanted to add a class, maybe do something like that. Like it just gave me extra time to like think about everything that I needed to do when I went back to school, whenever that would be.
So for you this fall, with football being canceled, you actually have you have reduced stress because you're focusing just on being a student and not having to kind of balance that student athlete component. Okay. Yeah. And I guess, I mean, it's, you know, I guess you don't think about that, right? For me, I would have thought it would be more stressful, but I do appreciate, right, that it gives you kind of that opportunity, right? Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Greg, for you as a senior, you know, or going into your senior year and now where you're at, and as you look to graduation in December, congratulations, by the way. Congratulations to your parents as well, by the way. What's been the hardest part kind of emotionally for you as you've kind of, since COVID started and as you've gone through this kind of process?
Oh man, to be honest with you, it's just been staying at home with my loud family and trying to do homework. Like that's a very stressful and emotionally like hardening for me.
Yeah.
I would also say in terms of finding a job, because me being a senior and graduating in December, a job is the number one thing on my mind, and that's been really making me stressed out because I've been applying to so many jobs and not one person has got back to me. Right. I have a pretty good resume. I just feel like all these companies just can't hire right now, and it's just it's difficult.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I'll try my best, and you know I'll be fine. I know I'll be fine. I'll find a job. I just gotta keep applying, and then.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, again, all of the different points of view and perspective, I think, you know, there is a level of resiliency that we're all probably going to benefit from, right? There are a level of adaptability and things along those lines. I think all of us can find some positives in it, but certainly stress. And I think many institutions are trying to think through how do we manage kind of the mental health. And Payton, to your point, if it's 20 available sessions, you know, per student, per, you know, whatever, is that enough? Does that give us the support and kind of resource that we need? I think it was in that same article, they contemplated the impact to students as it relates to internships and future employment. So Greg, kind of building on what you were talking about, Cami, help me understand, as you were looking at Boston College, right? And as you were contemplating where you wanted to go and so on and so forth, how important was it for you to have kind of potential for networking with alumni or friends of Boston College? And how has that shifted in kind of since COVID reared its head?
Yeah, it was definitely really important to me. I feel like my parents are still friends with their college friends, and they've a lot of times if they've had problems in their work and stuff like that, they'll reach out to their alumni network and find jobs through that, or, you know, find things to do through that. And I've seen that through them be really influential. And I know for me, when I say I'm going to Boston College, if someone else has been there, I love it. Reach out to me. Tell me all about it. You know, if you ever need a job, if you ever need an internship, contact me. And I feel like that's going to get a lot harder now that we have COVID, because a lot of those people don't have jobs. And so it's harder for them to, you know, connect to the alumni network when they're probably worried about their own jobs and their own, you know, financial needs at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out, right? Payton, let's talk about your experience, and let's talk about your summer internship, right? And I think you still had it, but how did it shift and change?
Yeah, so after getting back to the US, after that whole crazy experience, there were a few weeks there where everyone was just kind of sitting and waiting to see what happened. We were waiting to see if my friends at the University of Wisconsin got to go back to in-person classes, because originally it was just like a 2-week in-person time period. But while we were also waiting to hear what happened in terms of our internships. So everyone was just waiting and hoping that their internship that they had secured didn't cancel. So I was really afraid there for a while, like, oh my gosh, not only am I probably not going to be able to go to California and have this in-person internship at Intuit as a product manager, like it might just not happen at all. So I was really lucky. I'd say probably half of my friends had internships either canceled or shortened.
Yeah.
And all of them were virtual. I don't know anyone who was in person. As for my like experience at the internship, I'd say it's as good as a virtual internship could get. Intuit is a big company. They had a lot of resources to throw at it. And, you know, we had bonding Zoom calls with all the other interns. I was put in an intern pod, they called it. And so our project was to build an app, and I got to work with them on the day-to-day basis, and we still had managers. So it was as good as virtual can get. But you still didn't have that in-person experience. You know, you don't learn about what else is going on at the company, you know, while you're walking down the hallways or eating lunch with people who aren't necessarily on your team.
Right.
You didn't get to live and hang out with all the interns outside of work. So that was sad. And now I got a return offer there, which I'm super excited about.
Yes.
Job security, yay.
Awesome. Congrats.
But I've never been to the campus, and that's a scary move from Minnesota to San Francisco. If they even are in person by the time that I was there.
Yeah.
So it's all of these things too. It's like, well, if I don't move there, then where do I move? So it was very interesting.
Yeah. And Greg, I think you kind of already alluded to this, right? So as someone who's getting ready to, you know, go out into the work world, you're applying a ton, you're not getting responses back, right? Is there a plan B? Is there, if I can't find a job, do you continue school? Like what are you kind of thinking?
That's a good question. So I want to get a job.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what type of job it is. It's just I need a job. So like,
right.
If I'm a pizza delivery man, whatever, just a job is a job, right? And I'll wait until this pandemic is over to get that real job. But for me, like, I just feel like in the investments industry, there's still investments going on. There's still those jobs around. So I'm just hoping and praying that someone out there will find me.
Yeah.
And I want to do my master's school later.
Yeah.
Next like 3 years. I'm not ready to go back to, you know, school like that. I'm not a big school guy. So doing my master's right now all online sounds terrible.
Yeah. Yep. Fair enough. Okay. So let's also go back. And again, you know, all of you don't necessarily know each other, but the conversations I had with each of you, all of you shared that your college experience is broader than just what happens in your individual course, right? And so each of you, as you think about that, and then how that plays into the value, right, of the investment. You know, all of you are paying money. Some of you are doing it on your own. Some of you have parents that are helping. Some, you know, whatever the case may be, there's a variety of ways in which you're paying for it. But as you think about the value for the investment, especially if the institution, and in many cases, right, they've already made the decision to be 100% online, are you getting the value that you believe you should? And so, Cami, let's start with you. Again, freshman, Boston College is private, a pretty hefty paycheck, right? And so can you help me understand what that looks like for you as a new college student? And what are you looking forward to outside of the classroom and why?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of the school when I chose it was obviously the academics, but there was so much more that went into my process of thinking about what school do I want to go to, you know, like what kind of atmosphere do I want? And I loved the athletics were a big thing there. I loved that they had tons of volunteer. They sent people all over the world for volunteer work because they're a Catholic, they're a Jesuit school. And they're obviously not going to do that this fall. And there's a ton of other things that I'm going to be missing out on, like the typical like football games, the tailgates, all that stuff that's, you know, kind of typical of your college experience that I looked for in the school after I had like the good academic component there. And a big part of the reason why I chose Boston College was because it was super close to Boston. And I feel like they don't want people, they've already made it clear, they don't want people just going into the city. You know, that's a big petri dish of COVID. And it's going to be hard because that's one of the reasons why I chose it, was because it's near the city, it's super fun, there's job opportunities, there's internships, and all that sort of got taken away once COVID started.
Yeah. What about Payton, for you? You obviously have been heavily involved outside of the classroom, right? You've been involved in student organizations, you've been involved in kind of the athletics programs and internships and so on and so forth. So help us understand kind of and share your experience and story around, you know, what happens beyond the classroom and what that means for you.
Yeah, so I'd say to apply it back to the question, my experience as the president for Alpha Kappa Psi, which is a business fraternity on campus, is experience kind of that same issue of the value. So, you know, we're technically a Greek organization. We do have a relationship with the business school. So recruiters come and look at us. We go on professional trips to Chicago, Minneapolis. We actually went to Austin last year. Really fun events. We also have date party and banquet. And, you know, we do trivia at our favorite bar on campus. You know, all those things are part of the reason that people join the organization and stay active in it through their senior year. But since that can't happen, we're trying to find good substitutes. And yeah, you can do trivia through a Zoom call, and you can have a banquet with a slideshow and awards, but it's not the same as that in-person experience. And so we're really worried that people are going to lose that sense of community and not want to return. And so it's been a good experience for me to handle this and manage the new risk, because now it's like, oh, do we have small in-person events, or do we just say none at all? Because we want people to come back, but we also don't want to make people unsafe. And so it used to be that fraternities need to manage the risk of having alcohol at events, but now it's like you're managing the risk of a disease potentially at your events. So it's been tough, a good experience to adjust to, but yeah, trying to maintain that sense of community is worrisome. And we're also not sure how to get freshmen to rush, right? So Rush Week is typically everyone's favorite week. One of our favorite events is speed networking, where you have all 100 members and the 200 people that are rushing, and you're all running around the room, and it's really fun. There's good energy, but that's really dangerous in today's world. Right. So that can't happen. Yeah, it's been tricky.
So Payton, given your experience, right, you're paying for school, you know, and you're responsible for that. So are you getting the full value for the money that you're putting in?
I would say not exactly, because I am older now that I have friends and I know what goes on at the university. I'm able to seek out and retain some of that value, but it is not the same as like the game days on the weekends and seeing and connecting with your professors in person. it really isn't happening. And similarly, so I have a few on-campus jobs, one being a BBA ambassador as like a tour guide for the business school. I rely on that job to pay for housing and groceries every month. Typically that's around 15 to 20 hours a week. However, my boss has reduced that to like 7, I think is the highest I've gotten her to go. So that's a little frustrating. Is one, I really enjoy talking to families. Like, it's really fun. They come in, you get to help walk them through like all the different majors, and this is what the student experience is like. Like, football is awesome, and the student union, like, go share a picture at the terrace. All of these fun student things is how we convince students that Wisconsin BBA degree is worth it. And now we can't necessarily talk about those things when you're meeting with a family. It's like, well, yeah, football's really fun, but that's not happening this year. Maybe next year.
Right. Right.
That's been an adjustment as well.
So I'm mindful of time. We've got about 10 minutes left. So I want to jump to some additional questions. So the article on athletes, right? And so Payton, you mentioned this, football is a part of the experience and so on and so forth. Joey, let's talk about you and your situation, right? So you're a Division I player. The football season has been canceled, right? So that's just kind of where we're at, right? What opportunity or benefit do you get from this? And we talked about kind of a reduced stress, right? But what are you doing, or how are you trying to kind of turn this into a positive for you academically? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, just because I'm going to have a lot more time, I'm going to add another class just because, like, why not get the credits out of the way while I can? That'll just be really helpful in terms of, like, not having to stress later on if I don't have a certain class that I need, or if I, just don't have the credits that I need to want to graduate in time. But I guess also, I don't know. I get really close to my teammates during the season just because of how much time we spend together. So it's going to be tough. For everyone, obviously, socially is going to be a lot different this semester. But yeah, the main positive and focus for me this semester is definitely on taking a heavier class load just because I can, and really I want to put more effort into, like, finding an internship for the summer, really, like, diving deeper into maybe careers that I'm going to want to get into once I'm done with college, because I'm just going to have all this time, and I'd rather this is going to be the opportunity for me to really kind of figure out what I want to do with my education after school. So that's what I'm going to focus on. It'll be nice being able to, that's going to be my stress instead of, like, worrying about a game on Saturday, it's going to suck not having that, but definitely going to be able to find positives from it.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask another question. So Greg, for you as a senior, and for the people kind of listening, what's the one thing the University of Utah, or you think any kind of college or university, could or should be providing seniors this year?
Well, for any senior, you want a job, right? So the more career oriented things, the better.
Right.
And if that's virtual, so what? As long as I can get that help, that's what seniors need, is that help to get a job. Make it short and sweet like that.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say. Yeah.
Payton, how about for you? When you think about kind of COVID-19 and its implications on your education, what's kind of your greatest concern?
So a job is a big one, so I'll reiterate that, Greg. But it's also those connections too. People are jumping jobs more and more often, and you don't stay in the same place necessarily. So those connections that you make in college is like a base for all those jumping off points. And I get pretty close to my professors. I'm the kind of person who like goes to office hours and all of that. And those are then connections that I would build off of. Same with my jobs. You know, my coworkers and my bosses are people that I become friends with, and I like hearing about their jobs and staying in contact. And not having that in-person experience is something that I'm afraid will compound, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Not having this extra year of meeting my 7 professors that I'll have over the course of the year, not meeting the TAs that go along with those classes, not being able to sit in a class with someone who you might not have met yet in all the marketing classes that you've taken, is something that worries and saddens me because I'm a pretty extroverted person.
Yeah. So we had a question that came in through the Q&A was around kind of communication, right? So clear and concise and direct communication builds trust, right? Between students and the institution. Did the lack of timely and or informative communication from your various institutions at various points in time, did it erode your trust and or relationship with the college or university? Joey, for you? Again, go back to the spring where maybe the communication wasn't as great.
Yeah. I don't know. It didn't really, I wouldn't say it like eroded trust or anything. I'd say I knew it was, you know, it was a weird time for everyone, like the school itself. They were trying to figure out what to do. And obviously, I think we all know that, like, you know, the schools also, their biggest priority, I mean, besides the students, is like covering whatever budget they're on. And obviously the money part of this whole thing is a big deal. And that's, you know, that's what I've been talking to my parents about primarily. It's just like, you know, they're doing all they can to help us out as students, but like in the end, they need kids to come back. They need to get, you know, whatever, because, you know, they obviously have a set budget and they need that number to come in. So I understand it from that point. I know that they're trying to figure out what to do in terms of money. So I don't know. I thought they did a really good job, honestly. And I didn't, none of the trust, because they really, like, the administration did a good job of reaching out to us pretty quick. And I think they did everything they needed to do, for me at least, to make me feel comfortable.
Yeah. So Cami, another question that came in actually earlier, we've got a handful of them, and the reality is I think you've answered most of them, but there's one that came in about the residence halls and residence life. And what can residence life staff do to support you as a student that's coming back, as a student that's taking some face-to-face, one hybrid and then some online? What can the residence life staff do to support you as an incoming student?
Yeah, well, I feel like that definitely relates to the first article that was about, had a whole section on supporting the staff and the faculty to better support the students, because I think when students are kind of unsure of what's going on and they're unsure where their careers are going to go, they're unsure about their jobs, they're unsure about a lot of things, their health, they kind of need all the support they can get. And when the faculty and the staff are well supported by the university, then they're better able to assist the students. I feel like if you want to get into specifics, like definitely taking measures to make sure kids are doing the right thing and being safe in the halls, because that's the whole reason why a lot of these places are getting shut down, like UNC, is because there's, you know, kids are 18, they're going to college, they don't really know how to keep themselves accountable that well yet, and they often don't have that like authority figure over them or telling them that's probably not a good idea, like maybe you should put a mask on or stuff like that.
Yep. Wash your hands. Yep. Right? Yeah, I get it. Well, here's the deal, guys. We are out of time. We've got about 2 minutes to go. One, I want to thank you. I want to thank you all for, one, spending some time with me, obviously, before this. I love seeing all of your faces. But more importantly, you have been all great, and I appreciate your openness and sharing your experience and perspective. It certainly has been fun for me, and I hope that those that joined us have also been able to enjoy that. And again, I think the good news is this: I truly believe, and Payton, you and I talked about this last week, you know, we will all get through this. We're kind of all in it together. The good news is nobody is, you know, everybody's experiencing this, but I also think it's taught us a level of resiliency, right? And it's forced us to be kind of creative problem solvers and thinkers. It's given us, you know, Joey, in the case of your situation, it gives you a chance to kind of, you know, load up on some additional credits and maybe reduce some stress, and it allows you to focus. It also has given us time with our families and kind of friends in ways that maybe we would not have had otherwise. And Greg, I am 100% confident you'll get a job. You're a good, smart guy, and will certainly navigate the world, and you'll have a story around kind of your experience and kind of your adaptability with that. So again, thank you so much for joining me in this. Thank you for the conversation and sharing your perspective and stories. And I wish you all nothing but the best, and look forward to hearing about all of your awesome success, which is still to come. So with that, I will turn it back to Sparky, and we will kind of move and groove from there. Let me share my screen, Sparky, for you, and I think we're ready to roll. Oh, I should say, yeah, I think we, just to do a level set, I think we did close the loop and hopefully landed on some of these things and accomplished the goals that we had as we started at the top of the hour. And with that, let's talk a little bit about kind of the 4 pillars of quality online education as a reminder for those that are joining us. Sparky, take it away.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Thank you. And so again, we've been on this journey since March, since COVID first started. And at Helix Education, we want to do all that we can to support colleges and universities as they make that transition to online and face an uncertain future with greater confidence. And as we talked about that, we talked about those 4 pillars: institutional online readiness, online teaching and learning, online student experience and engagement, and then today's pillar, student and parent expectation management. And so again, the goal of couching these resources and these webinars and things in these 4 pillars is to help transition from emergency remote teaching to quality online education. So we have assembled resources that we have used and we've implemented over our time as an institution, as a company, around assessment rubrics, how-to guides, professional development and training, including these webinars, foundational templates, benchmarks, and KPIs for colleges and universities to utilize to help aid them in this transition. And so, and again, revisiting those 4 pillars. And we've been on this journey for, like I said, about 16 weeks. We've had 16 webinars. We're in the process right now of actually taking our webinar content and repurposing it, repackaging it in some fun kind of power bite snippets to help really highlight the most impactful parts of each of these webinars and share them with you. And so be on the lookout for more information on that shortly. And again, where can you find all of this? I've just put this in the chat. You can visit us at helixeducation.com/new-future and send us an email at newfutureinfo@helixeducation.com. If you go to the website, you'll be able to see and download all the different resources that we have available there. And then if we're more than happy to help you with your specific situation. Get the ball rolling by sending us an email, newfutureinfo@helixeducation.com. That goes to a handful of different folks, and we can find the one who can best help address your specific questions. And so with that, I'll say a final goodbye and thank you to KARI, to Greg, to Payton, to Joey, and to Cami, and to all of you for attending. Thank you for the privilege of your time and for joining us in this conversation today. Stay safe. Have a great rest of your day and week. Take care, everybody.